Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the Disconnected. I'm here with Lee Gambin, who is seemingly, I'm learning about more and more every day as he posts what he does on social media. But Lee is currently in Melbourne. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
So,
Born and
what do you do for film? Because it seems like you're kind of surrounded by everything.
We do a lot. Melbourne's really lucky. I think we're pretty spoiled. Like, I think we're lucky as an art city.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So there's a lot of film festivals, there's a lot of film groups, there's collectives, there's societies, there's beautiful Art Deco cinemas. There's the Cinematheque, there's film festivals. I think I just said that. But there's a lot going on in film culture as well as home media. There's like a really massive quota of collectors and people who buy home media, two really strong, solid home media companies like Imprint and Umbrella, and then also heaps of people who work in home media. Like I just thought about it before jumping on. It's like, fuck, there's heaps of people in Melbourne who actually do what I do, which is awesome. So it's a really healthy scene. So yeah, there's a lot of film stuff going on. Also, Melbourne's really strong as far as like the live music scene, and there's a lot of kind of parallels there, I guess, or a bit of a family network there, and the performing arts like theatre and stuff, but also fine art scene. Like it's just a very, I guess, cosmopolitan, very multi-dimensional scene that everyone sort of has different pockets in, and yeah, it's awesome. It's great. I love it. I love Melbourne. I couldn't live anywhere else in Australia, that's for sure.
That's incredible. The amount of times that I see things happening in Australia that is seemingly impossible to get done everywhere else is just fascinating. Some of the things that you post about the ACMI seems like somebody that you work with quite a lot. Can you tell everybody what that is?
Yeah, so I run a film collective called Cinemaniacs, and Cinemaniacs screen at ACMI, which is basically a hub cinema and museum in the heart of Melbourne, and we program a whole bunch of stuff every year, and we get people to do presentations and to do talks and to do panels, and we sometimes get people involved with the actual film itself to do video introductions, which is always awesome. And so yeah, we're sort of in that sort of realm there. That's also ACMI is also the home of the Cinematheque. So people who are also associated with Cinemaniacs here and there, like Eloise Ross and Cerise Howard, all these people are affiliated with and run the Cinematheque as well. But yeah, ACMI is like a really major institution here. So basically a lot of print gets screened here. There's a lot of museum stuff. There's a lot of exhibitions. A lot of rep stuff happens. A lot of the festivals are held there as well, like Melbourne International Film Festival. So you get a whole range of things happening. You'll have international guests coming down doing, talks or exhibitions. So it's pretty much, a major space.
It's amazing. Lately, I feel like your name is coming up multiple releases every single month, whether it's Umbrella or Via Vision with Imprint as one of their biggest lines, but they are both of them kind of taking everything by storm over the last year, especially Imprint. Imprint has exploded in popularity, and I am glad that they're coming out of Australia because they seem to be in their own little niche and has allowed them to do some things that other companies have not. And with Imprint, the big thing is breaking into the Paramount vaults. A lot of other companies have tried to do that for years, and Imprint suddenly got and continue to get films that have never been able to be released on home video anywhere. What are some of the titles that you've worked on that have been out of these two labels that you're just beyond excited to be able to contribute?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head with titles that have been in the vault for way too long, and one of them is The Fabulous Stains. So, yes. I mean, before I go into that, Imprint is amazing. Like the content they're churning out, what the company does, the people they get involved, how diverse it is, how the idea is like having a package where basically you have audio commentary, video essay, interviews with people involved with the film. That's just amazing, just to have that kind of wonderful lineup so the boutique release is fleshed out and meaty. That's really important, I think. And it's just beautiful. And the packaging's stunning, and the prints always look great, and it's just beautiful. But yeah, absolutely, to answer your question about recent releases, in fact, the last title I worked on for Imprint was, ladies and gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, which, A, is a magnificent film, B, has been hidden forever, And has this awesome legacy, like has an incredible legacy. So I was really, really chuffed to be assigned pretty much not only to work on it, but be a producer on the release. So I was like in charge of a whole range of things. So
Nice.
one thing about that movie that really speaks to me is I was really and still am very ingrained in the Riot Girl culture. So early 90s, I was obsessed with Riot. I still am. You know, all those bands, Bikini Kill and Bratmobile and all those bands were really important to me and still very much are. And so it was really cool to see how this film really did generate and spark this kind of inspiration to that movement. Like, you know, so 10 years after the movie comes out, these young women who grew up with this movie start this amazing movement, right? So people like Kathleen Hanna and Alison Wolfe, etc. So I was like, okay, Toby Vale, etc. And I was like, okay, cool. That's a really good angle. So I'm going to go, okay, let me start with that. Maybe I can organize something involving Riot Girl. And so I got the excellent Alison Wolfe, who, of course, was in Bratmobile and a whole bunch of other bands, Cold Cold Hearts, Party Line, Sex Stains, etc., who was, you know, an integral, you know, co-founder of Riot Girl, to do the commentary with me, which was just stunning. Wow. Like, it was so much fun. And she's the best. Like, she's so fun and she's awesome. And her insight is incredible and also very personal. But yeah, so we did this sort of joint commentary. We could never figure out a time to do it together because we, you know, she lives in LA. Right. But I was, you know, like, okay, that's fine. Let's just do chunks. So she sent me all her recording and I did my recording and then I just edited it. And so what you'll get is this, I feel, this incredibly rich collage, I guess, of a commentary where you have a lot of production history, a lot of what happened on set, a lot of the conception of the film, people involved with it, like the legendary Nancy Dowd and Carolyn Coon and all these amazing people. And then also what you get is really personal accounts from Alison about the film, what it did and how it shaped her and her ideas on being a woman in a band and all this stuff. So it's really, I just feel like really proud of that commentary. That, and also I got Maren Cantor, who plays the guitarist in the band. So, you know, not Diane Lane and not Laura Dern, the other musician. And she was awesome. So she did like a really cool interview for it. Sarah Marcus. So Sarah Marcus wrote a really cool book called Girls to the Front, the true story of Riot Girl. And she's an incredible critic and academic. And she did a very cool video essay about the film. And Debbie Rochon, the fabulous Debbie Rochon, did a video for it. And then also you've got Kat Allinger doing a video essay on women in punk prior to the 80s, which is also, I can't wait to see that. So there's a lot of stuff in there. And then also Imprint have dug deep and they've got archive interviews with Laura Dern and Diane Lane and the director Lou Adler. But that's going to be a really huge release and it comes out very soon, I believe. So yeah, so it's going to be unreal. And it's just incredible that after doing all that, I, with Cinemaniacs, have, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I'm pretty proud of myself. But I've got Bikini Killer touring here. Bikini Killer playing in Melbourne in March. And I managed to wrangle and whip up this whole thing where we're going to screen The Fabulous Stains and have Kathleen, Kathy, and Toby from Bikini Kill in conversation talking about the Fabulous Stains and what they grew up with as far as film and women in punk and music in film and music. I'd love them to talk about musical biopics because I think that's really interesting. And yeah, just also how Riot Girl was presented in film and TV. But all that stuff, I just can't wait to do it. But yeah, that's all been planned. It's sold out in a freaking day. Done.
That is a massive achievement. That's a really cool setup. And yeah, something that seems to be not something that I could definitely go out and see. That seems to be fairly Melbourne centric. That's amazing.
Well, it's also like musicians. When do we hear musicians talking about films they love? You know, I think that's really important.
Well, especially really for a film that's as important as that. That movie has gone to have this giant legacy that people don't really realize nowadays because it's been kind of difficult to see for quite a while, which is where Imprint steps in and is killing the fact that this release has been sought after for so long, and now to get it on HD and everybody will be able to get it worldwide is just a stupendous achievement.
Absolutely. And also like how important it is as far as feminist cinema. So I remember me and Alison, when we were doing the prepping for our commentary, I was like, Alison, I don't really want to talk about the guys in the film. I don't give a fuck about talking about the Sex Pistols and the Clash. Like, we know them. And Allison's like, yeah, me either. So it was like, but eventually I think we do anyway. But it's like, yeah, it's not a focal point. Like, whatever. Move on. Let's talk about the women.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it's really interesting. So as far as like feminist cinema, teen-centric cinema, and working class cinema, it's about poor kids. It's about working class girls, which is awesome. Anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. Umbrella seems to be focusing on another aspect that I wanted to highlight tonight, and that is just really giving this massive respect for Aussie cinema as a whole, because they have multiple lines like the Sunburst cinema that they dive into, a lot of very specific Australian films, a lot of the Ozploitation series, obviously. How do you connect to Aussie cinema? Is it something that's special to you personally?
Definitely the eco horror stuff. But that's definitely the bag of people like Mark Hartley, who's done such incredible work for Oz cinema history and stuff, and people like Alexandra Halla-Nicholas, who's doing amazing stuff with Fangoria, with celebrating a lot of Aussie unsung Aussie stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of amazing people who do a lot of championing of Australian cinema. For me personally, it's funny. People assume that I'm a big Hollywood nerd. Like I grew up it's just Hollywood stuff. I love Australian cinema, like animal-centric stuff. Like Dusty is one of my favorite films that people don't talk about, and I think Umbrella released that just for DVD. That needs a Blu-ray. That needs a nice upgraded Blu-ray. And I put my hand up to the commentary. But that was, written by people like Sonia Borg, who's an amazing writer. She wrote Dark Age and Storm Boy. But yeah, of course, I grew up loving things like all the Ozploitation films and the horror stuff, and especially, of course, the animal-centric stuff. Dark Age, Razorback, Long Weekend. Dusty, all these films. But yeah, it wasn't like I sought after Aussie stuff. But I loved, there were obscure things that I kind of, in my child's brain, would connect with American content. So if I looked at something like Ginger Meggs, when I saw that as a kid, my brain went to things like, 1990s Dick Tracy, or, because they had that kind of same aesthetic and they came from comics. But yeah, as far as like seeking out Aussie films, not really, which is very bizarre, I guess, from an American perspective. But I just grew up obsessed with American cinema, and like that's what was on television. I think there's an idea that a lot of people who didn't grow up in Australia thought we grew up with Aussie content. Of course we did, but it was that big compared to what we thought was the American stuff, So that, like, for instance, sitcoms, there was only a fair few, Kingswood Country and stuff like that. There were a fair few and a lot more back when I grew up in the 80s, but it was mostly American content. It was mostly, Channel 10 would have the monopoly on Universal stuff, and Channel 7 would have a lot of the Paramount catalog, and Warner Brothers was Channel 9, and so you get to sort of have that, and they all had a distinct look. For some reason, they had the print always looked similar. But yeah, it was kind of like just this culture that was sort of built here, growing up and being obsessively watching films and TV. That was very American, very American. And it's really interesting. I did a panel with Amanda Reyes, who, of course, does a lot of made-for-TV. She's, a scholar on made-for-television films. Yep. And we were talking on that panel. It was me, Kayla Janice, John Harrison, and we were talking about how here in Australia, when TV movies aired, they were never really released as a TV movie. It was just a film that was on, the Sunday night film or the Wednesday night film. So it was never like, specifically for the network, because they weren't for our networks. They were for your network. So they'd come here and you'd go, oh, was that actually a TV movie or a theatrical one? And you'd go, oh, fuck, it was a TV. So that kind of thing. So it was just sort of ingrained in our brains. Like, I grew up with all that stuff, like everything, like I just loved it. And so Australian content was there and I loved a lot of it. There was a lot of kids' TV stuff that was fucking crazy and wild. Things like Hunter and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. But as far as like growing up with Aussie stuff, it was there, but I never really sought after it just because it was Aussie.
That makes sense, and it's proportional. I mean, the amount of media that's been produced, obviously, a very small portion is going to be Australian overall, but the amount of Hollywood content, it's going to infiltrate other cultures when that's what they're piping in, and when there is so much content that's out there, you can only absorb so much. So yeah, that makes complete sense. Are there certain things that really sparked that interest for you when you were little that you can recall being, these are some of the first things that truly got me into film?
Sorry, of what?
Any film, any TV, anything from
in general?
Yeah.
Oh God, all of it. I'm a big believer. Like, I just champion everything. Like I'm right now watching episodes of Designing Women, so like I love everything. So like it's really hard for me to pinpoint things. But I would say the things that I kind of, as a little one, as a kid, I really gravitated to horror and monsters. So monster stuff was my thing. So Universal monster movies were like comfort. They still are. You know,
Right.
or chuck on, I know all the sound cues and the dial, you know what I mean? And you can sleep to them. They're like a nice blanket. So yeah, monster movies, slasher films, just basically all horror. But then also I loved musicals and westerns and noir and sitcoms and just everything. I just ate it all up. It was really hard for me not to enjoy much. I even watched obsessed with current affairs programs. Like that's how weird I was. But also like talk shows. You know, I just watched everything. So it's really hard to sort of navigate what pinnacle films. However, I would say there are definite movies that are go-to films for comfort, but that's quite huge. Like, you know, there's people who have like maybe 10 or 15. For me, it's like endless. Like even like I do a pile up of Christmas viewing and it's just huge. It's like, when the fuck am I going to watch all these? You know? But I'll have it on as a background. Like, you know, it will go from like the Sonny and Cher Christmas special to, you know, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. You know, like it's this beautiful running theme. So I just love everything, which is kind of to my death.
Yeah. But it makes you well-rounded and it makes you understand where all of that comes from. And really, it all just kind of builds off of each other in a way that just creates this massive culture awareness. So yeah, that's awesome.
While flipping it to you, just on your background, clearly you love a lot of different stuff as well. Like that's a huge collection of blues. So you're not collecting for the boxes, like you're collecting because you love the films. And I know there's like, and God bless everyone who buys physical media, because everyone should. If you can't afford to, you should. It is a privilege, but it is something that's really important for the legacy of films. But also there are collectors who will buy a label and that's because they like the label. And that's fine. But once they watch the films, they get, that's awesome. Right. Like it's great for them to actually get involved with the film. So that's really important with the labels that we all work for, that the curation is actually really important because it kind of feeds into what people start to enjoy. And I think that's amazing.
Well, one of the things I wanted to highlight is Australia seems to have this interesting sort of personality because there really are two big labels that are doing the physical media down there. And with Umbrella and with Via Vision / Imprint, they have this interesting diverse slate of releases that you can pick up, and especially Umbrella with all of their different lines, but Imprint is hitting everything as well. Why do you think physical media is so important to Australians? Because it seems like these are just hitting really hard across the world at the moment. They've both gotten very popular globally.
Because people care about movies and they want to have them forever. And I think people are savvy with how shitty streaming services are. Like there's nothing on them. I think I have access to like 4 of them. Like I don't like. I've got all the things I want. Like, but I don't know. Look, I can't answer that. But I think, thank God, people are buying movies because it keeps people like me and the people that work in my industry, like your Kat Allingers, like Alexandra, all these people who work in home media. We can eat and we can pay rent, right? But yeah, also because I think people love movies, they love to collect things, they love that whole tangible feeling of having the film. And features, absolutely. Like you mentioned, Umbrella, Ben Hellwig, I'm going to give him a massive shout out. What he's done recently, he's like started with Umbrella just recently, but how he's just curating stuff. Like he curated the Reynolds box set. Beautiful. This is where you have these people coming in going, oh my God, who can do this? Who can, get John Harrison to write a booklet on Burt Reynolds. Lee, what can you bring to the table for Best Little Whorehouse? I go, I'll do a video essay on sex work and musicals from Dave. He goes, done. Like, that's how diverse you want to be. And then just all that kind of stuff, the content. Also, like the archive thing, people saving prints and bringing them to digital format. It's incredible. So people like, what Jeff Harrison at Umbrella's doing and Mark Hartley with what he's done with the Oz stuff is incredible. So Imprint, Josh Hibbert at Imprint is just incredible, has this amazing curatorial of film, like it's all this great content, picks people associated with the film, or picks perfect people that would do something great for the release. You know, it's amazing. And also just the diversity of voices, the diversity of content, digging into archive. So for instance, you wouldn't be able to get a lot of extras that are old extras if you just relied on streaming services, you know.
Yep.
So I think that's just, I think people really are finding it very important. And it's really interesting. People are now starting to realize, they go, oh, fuck, you know, if I post something on Facebook or whatever about a movie, they'll go, how do you see that? And they go, you buy it? Like in the olden days when you got, and they go, oh, right. And, you know, people who are in a position, you know, thankfully, you know, we are, you know, but there's people who are in a position who can afford to do that. So why not? And also, if you love art, it keeps the machine going. It keeps people alive. It keeps people eating. You know, same with music. Buy records. Don't just download things. Download, you know, if you can afford to buy physical media, why not? But yeah, I think it's important because people want to own the product and the streaming services are A, they don't have much content, and B, it disappears. So if you want it forever, you need to buy it. Yeah.
And the highest quality is in a lot of this physical media as well, whether it's in a UHD disc, whether it's in Blu-ray. There's no doubt that even like the compression that comes across with some of the streaming and the unreliability of it's unmatched when you're talking about physical media, because you just press the button and it's always going to be there. That disc can't change now that you're holding it.
That's it. I mean, do you remember when like DVD started? The thing that was so exciting for me was you get to see the picture properly, so you're not relying on your videos.
Yep.
Where the fucking tracking was going out or something. It's like, oh Jesus! Like, yes, you're gorgeous. I will never throw you out. Cover, you know, fucking, you know, roadshow release, beautiful clamshell, but the print that, you know, it looks awful. So when the DVDs came out, it's like, oh, that looks stunning, and then also all the stuff that came as extras.
Yeah.
And so I think the legacy of that is great. So it's really important for me as a film guy and all the people who love movies to have all that on there. So to have interviews with all these people who work on these movies who are probably long gone, but that's all there on that disc. So that's stunning. I think that's really important. So I think all that archive, you know, if that gets lost, that's just an absolute shame. Like, you know, you want, you know, that interview with whoever worked on, you know, this classic from the 40s, and you just have them talking. It's like, that's something to cherish, and it's legacy. So I've been lucky and very privileged to interview heaps of people like for years, and a lot of them, you know, pretty much, you know, seniors, like, you know, over 80, and they love to be able to talk about their work, but B, they get excited the fact that people care enough to have it on a release, and they go, oh my God, why would, you know, that's amazing, this movie had this life again. So it's lovely. It's really nice to work in that field.
Well, to flip the highlight to you, I think it's also very nice that we get amazing people like you that are able to put their voice and their education behind something like the Stains. I mean, that's a film that has a giant legacy, but because it's had such a gap from the original release to now being able to be out on Blu-ray, a lot has changed since then. So getting some sort of contextual special features to go with that, whether that be essays by Kat Ellinger, whether that be a commentary by yourself and people involved, it is this incredible way to sort of educate an entire generation that is out with physical media now, and being able to see how it's impacted others, how we are learning from it, how that legacy can impact the future of film. And I just thank you, and thank everybody that is continuing to contribute to these, because otherwise that's a lot that we would lose completely.
Oh, thank you. And it's really, I love that you're mentioning the idea of different voices and scholarship and all that stuff, because it's nice. What I like to do with my work is do both. So I like to do production history as well as analytical, right? So if I'm going to do a video essay, it's going to be analytical. And a big shout out to someone like Jonathan Zauren, who is an editing master, because I think video essays are really important because they kind of bring in this academic aspect to it, unless the video essay is about a star or a director or whatever, but there's, you know, usually a thematic thing, right? So that's really incredibly important, I think, but also having the production history people. So the people who go in the archives and dig deep and interview. Like, I just, for some reason, I have a bit of a weird idea that if you're going to be working on a movie that was made, say, from like the 70s onwards, chances are people are alive. So why not reach out and try and interview them, because that's nice first-hand accounts of the film. Anyway, but so I like to do both. I like to do the the production history, research, interviews, archive, as well as bring in my own, thoughts or academia or whatever. But I think that's another important aspect where all these different people that get hired have something unique to offer. And when you have a release that's got multiple voices or multiple perspectives, it just adds to it. I think it's just beautiful. Like, I think that's really important. And like, companies like Indicator and Arrow and stuff with the booklets. So like, it's just all amazing. And Kino Lorber just churning out such stunning, beautiful films and constantly having a film critic or an academic or historian doing a commentary. And they're always uniquely different and like well suited to the film and diverse. So you can jump from, someone being on this Western from the 50s to some 80s horror film.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Like, I think that's the real cinephilia, where people just love everything and do all this incredible eclectic work. And then, of course, you have specialists. You go, okay, here's the blah, blah, blah. We need to get this person because they wrote a book on that.
Right.
But yeah, I just it's really cool. And I think you're right. It's like all about that nourishing experience of having a release that's really meaty and, filled with, all this stuff. It's good.
And Imprint is doing it right. There's been some highlights this year for me. You've already mentioned one of the big ones. Kat Ellinger is a friend of mine, first of all. She's incredible. And some of her Imprint visual essays this year have been remarkable. She did one on Ken Russell's Horror that was mind-blowing. I just watched the one that she did on Nastasia Kinski on the Harem release. It is just incredible. And I'm curious if you would share your basically your methods when you're doing something like a visual essay. How much time does it take? How much work do you put into it? Because first of all, a lot of people still don't watch all these features. And I want to give the idea of appreciating the art that we have in front of us. Because yes, it's a film. Yes, the film is probably the biggest deal on the disc. But all these other things that go with it takes a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of education for people like yourself that have this wealth of knowledge. And it is, I don't want to put the people down, but you're just leaving something on the table that there's no reason to if you're not appreciating the entire package.
Well, that's probably their time as well.
Right.
Like, how much time do you have to watch? Okay, I've got a commentary to listen to. I need to, like, that's why I always find those people who do reviews, like, that's their job to go through it. I was like, that's amazing. I love that job. But yeah, so video, I love visual essays, and I reckon, I don't know how many I've done. I've done a few. I used to do quite a few for Eureka, but I love them. And the reason I love doing them is because you can just hone in on a focus and you can just concentrate on that. And it's like 15 to 20 minutes. And that's beautiful. Not that I'm saying, because I love doing commentaries, but that's a lot of work. Commentaries is a lot of work. And it's always fab. I love it, and I never say no to gigs. But unless I go, oh no, that person would be better for that one. But blah blah. But commentaries is a lot of work. Well, that's a couple, a few weeks of heavy duty work. But video essays, as far as I'm concerned, if you're doing something that you're kind of really familiar with, or it's something that's pretty second nature, or like you just get it. I reckon for me, I don't know how to weigh up a time limit on it. I don't know how Kat works. I know Kat's very prolific as well, but I reckon maybe a good 3 solid days. So you just sort of want to curate your idea, map it out, have it all thought out, and then do some, heavy duty, extensive research for like 1 day or something, and then just write it out. And it's just nice to be able to pitch ideas to companies for video essays, because they seldom come to you and go, we want a video essay on this. They'll just ask you, what do you think? So even like when it's really nice when a company asks you what you think should be done for the release. And Kat and I always talk about this, which is something that we actually really love. And it's not wanky to say this, but we really love giving people jobs. I fucking love it. I love the idea of like sharing. Like, if you don't share, like, what's the point of being a human? But anyway, So me and Kat always love to share work or give work, point work. So when I got Resurrection, I was like, Josh is like, oh, we need a video essay. I go, how about Kat Ellinger doing a video essay on healing in movies? And he goes, done. Do it. So she's done that, and I can't wait to hear or see that. But it's it's just that whole thing where you just pitch an idea, and these companies are so awesome that they go, that sounds great. So like, Eureka did an Edgar Allan Poe thing with the black cat on it. And I was like, let me do a video essay on cats in horror. So I got to do that, and that was awesome fun. So that was already in my bag, being an animal horror
Yeah.
guy. So I was like, oh yeah. So, but yeah, the sex work in musicals was so fun, and it's really grim. So it's really interesting because Best Little Whorehouse in Texas is probably one of the only musicals about sex workers that it is light. Everything
Right.
else, every other musical about a sex worker or sex workers is devastating. They always either
Yeah.
die or they're killed, right? So I did this video essay where it was just grim, and Ben Halving's like, so that's what happens, right? This is the thing. So that was really cool to work on, and then it kind of it's sort of juxtaposed with this film that's quite bubbly. But the other things, doing video essay on the Dead Zone for Imprint, that was awesome fun because what I pitched was the connection between the Dead Zone and Cujo and how there's a link. And so it was basically about the Frank Dodd thing and how Cujo was supposedly the reincarnation of Frank Dodd. So I got to do that. And that was great because that's something that adds another layer to the Dead Zone experience. So the King universe. But yeah, no, I love video essays. I really love them. And there's all these other people in the industry who haven't done them yet, and they're like clamoring to do one. And I'm like, just calm down. You'll get it. You'll get it.
The Box of Burt release that we've alluded to quite a few times already was astonishing to see it get announced because it's another one where some of the films in there have not always been super easy to see. But then the response to it, that thing sold out like immediately, right when it was posted, basically. I am just amazed that sort of thing, even in 2022, is still getting that sort of response. I'm just so fortunate to see it.
It's so good. And like, it's funny.
So glad you're on it.
Oh, thank you. The other thing about the release that came out at the same time that I worked on that Ben as well got me on was the Wrong Turn Blu-ray, which is a modern film, like because me, I don't really watch anything made after 2000. But the essay I got to do on that was so much fun. That was hillbilly horror, so like kind of the backwater kind of horror stuff, and that was fun to work on. And that I think sold out straight away as well. That went crazy. Yeah. So there you go. You can never really guess which ones do really well. I think, amazing. But Umbrella, they're doing incredible stuff. And Imprint, just constantly amazing stuff. And Imprint, like you said, the idea of going and getting stuff that has never been released, like The Possession of Joel Delaney, like that was amazing. And also a shout out to Alyssa Rose, a good friend of mine, who is a costume historian. So the idea of like having her input on a video essay, just solely focusing on costume, like that's vital. No one's doing that, and that's amazing. And that she'll be doing things from like, something like 70s, like Joel Delaney to On the Beach. And so, that's vital. Like it's all that stuff's really invaluable. I think it's really important.
I agree. And the amount of Australian releases that seem to be permeating across the world is escalating for some reason, like Imprint getting more popular, Umbrella getting more popular. To those companies, does it feel like they're getting bigger globally down there? Do you feel that sort of growth happening right now?
You'd have to ask the bosses. I don't have access to their sales.
Right.
But I do know that when you cruise all the what do they call it? The boards where people go on about Imprint and Umbrella. Yeah, they kind of go, oh, did you get this? And people buy stuff. And you've got people like Tony Mikas and Ryan Kendall and that who run the things like the Imprint podcast. So you see how people tune into that and the sales of those titles go. And then, Imprint do sometimes, the limited run and they just get snatched up really quickly or they do really well. So, sometimes I get an insight, but it's not my job to. It's like I hope they sell. I guess it's like any business, but I feel like just from seeing what people are buying and just what people post that they're doing okay. What I would like to say is that more shops need to host physical media. That's my big issue. So because I work in retail. Well, anyway, but retailers need shelf space for movies. and it's really not good that they don't, because the shop experience, and also like a lot of older people don't go online. So I used to work at a DVD shop ages ago, and 80% of the clientele who physically bought stuff, who weren't just in there going, oh, what's this? Or this is too expensive. 80% of them were seniors. They've had their kids. The kids are now adults. They've got grandkids. They're on their own. It's either them as couples or on their own, and they want to spend the rest of their years watching the old westerns they watched or their old musicals. And I freaking loved those people. They were beautiful, and it was really lovely to be able to talk to them about classic cinema. And they bought stuff all the time. Now, if they go into a store and there's no films displayed, they're not going to go online and know that, the Deanna Durbin box set's out. So when you have like, a 20-year-old going, I just bought the freaking Fred Astaire, that's great. Good on you. Keep it going. But I want that woman in her 70s who would never go online, so it's a bit ageist and it's a bit classist. So I'm just sort of I get a bit pissed off at that, because I think having them displayed in a shop where these elderly people who can actually talk to staff, who know staff, that's also really important. And I think, that's gone. That's gone from Australia, at least. I don't know what it's like in the States, but in Melbourne, there's like very few stores that host movies, and I think that's fucked.
Yeah, and it's mostly gone here. There are a couple standouts that are pretty well known, even just through collectors across the country. There's a handful of physical stores that if you were, going on some sort of pilgrimage, you could go to these specific things. But other than that, it's not like you can just hop into a corner shop and purchase one of these boutique releases, which is sad. And the way that we're able to get these titles out there is completely diminished if it's all going to be online, because so many people, like you said, they literally can't access online. They won't access online. Yes. It's just not something that they think of.
Yeah, and also like it's racist. Like there's a lot of people who don't speak English and stuff like that, who want to see these films and love them and grew up with them, but they don't do internet. Like it's okay that people don't go online. So like, when the fucking plague was happening, it's still happening, but when it was like in full throttle and everyone was expected to be at home on laptops. Sorry, not everyone has them. But the other thing about the brick and mortar thing with shops is that oh my god, my brain. It's just that the flip side. Sorry, the flip of it. So there's people who buy shitloads of movies. Bless them, we love you, but they would never go to a store,
right?
Because they don't want to pay the retail price, because they don't want to support a shop that has bills and staff. So it's like, well, if you want to support these things, when you complain, there's no shops that, well, you need to actually pay that extra $10 or,
exactly.
Deal with it. So that's the other flip side, just humans.
Yeah, it's tough. And Australia seems to be, like JB Hi-Fi seems to be the biggest deal, at least from the outside view. But
they only do local. So JB Hi-Fi only stock Umbrella and Imprint. They won't stock Arrow and Kino. No.
And that's you are severely limiting yourself when you're doing something like that, because it's region coding. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems. And obviously Australian releases, most of them are region free for some reason. They get away with it, and that's great. But it would be nice to see other cultures and true diversity being able to permeate. And
also most people who buy these things, they all have multi-zones. Like that was the big conversation at the shop, right? It was like, now, do you have a multi-zone? And you have to explain that to them, which is fine. And then you go, okay, if your player is one of these brands, you open the tray and you type in, you can play. And when it was gorgeous, because it was really cute, because when these people in their 70s, 80s and stuff found out they could play everything, it was they were just in heaven. It was really beautiful. And I do miss, that woman that comes in and goes, I saw a movie and blah, blah, blah was in it. And, Ginger Rogers plays a lawyer. And I go, yes, that's this one. And they get excited and they'll, buy it. Like that, it's just beautiful. Like that kind of thing that's precious as far as like movie sharing movie love with people who are older. I think that's really lovely.
The hard part is
And
we need to be able to pay somebody that has that sort of movie knowledge to work at a shop like that. And nowadays, that's damn near impossible to do, to get somebody to work there that can help a myriad of different types of people that are coming in searching for information. Because a lot of the time, those people know more than the workers.
yeah, and I will stand by the ageism and classism of it all. I really do. I think it's like there's a lot of people in their 20s who are from middle class backgrounds who don't give a shit about movies, or for that matter, probably don't even give a shit about the arts in general.
Right.
Who are old shit, or they say things like, oh, no one buys that anymore. It's like, all right, well, you're wrong. So those people, those people should not have any fucking say. Those people
Right.
need to just do their thing and just, live off mummy and daddy's money and go away, because it's the people who actually care. I think film is actually about community as well, and I think that's really important. I think it's like the sort of insular collector who shops and hoards. Yeah, cool, good on you, because you're keeping things alive. That's great, but you also need to, share and experience together. I think it's really important. Yeah. I do. I think that's why film collectives and film societies, bringing people together, building community, people doing stuff, people sharing, that kind of real kind of social networking between people. I think that's really important. It's actually really healthy, and it makes the industries thrive, rather than just, keeping it in your own space. I think, yeah.
And if you're going to do that, I mean, there are ways that you can do something around these communities all online. If you're not going to be able to go out, and if you live in the middle of nowhere,
yeah.
and your community doesn't have that, you can find a community online to embrace.
Yeah. And it's also just about conversation, like talking to other people about movies. It doesn't even have to be about events. It's just about, this whole idea of talking to other people who love movies, or if they don't love movies, talking to people and showcasing your love for movies. And that might spark, connection, and also not being judgmental or assuming things. Like, it's funny, people go, oh, Lee, you love this person, they're into the same movies, and I end up meeting this person. I don't actually like them. I don't give a fuck they love them. But then you might meet someone who doesn't give a shit about film, and they go, oh my God, tell me more, and they get more excited. And also, I think there's also the tunnel vision thing, which drives me crazy. Like, cinephilia to a lot of people is assumed to be one kind of film. And it's like, wrong. So, and the horror community, and I'll use that term broadly, the idea is everyone's into the same fucking 10 horror films. It's like, have you seen? Come on.
Right.
It's not just black t-shirts. Come on. let's see beyond Freddy. And I love Freddy to death, but come on. So there's that kind of thing as well. And then also the weird people who just have a weird disinterest in stuff that was made, in the 30s and 40s. What's that? There's people, there's a lot of shit. It just drives me mad. People who snub an entire genre. Oh, I don't like that. Why? There's so how is one Western like the other? How is one musical like the? How is Fiddler on the Roof like Cabaret? Tell me. What's similar? Nothing. So this whole thing, and the connection would be the thematics. It's about people about to die. There's all this. So all this stuff drives me mad. So I just think people need to love more things.
I am the exact same way about foreign films. The amount of times that I've tried to recommend something to somebody and they say, well, I don't want to read the movie, I just want to watch it. I'm like, well, you're completely limiting yourself. There's so much beautiful cinema out in the world that you are just completely turning your back to for no reason.
Yeah. And it's funny that we're still calling it foreign, it's
right.
It's like America.
Yeah. Yep, that shows my privilege right there. Yeah, it's exactly what we grew up.
Yeah, that's right. But it's tricky. I mean, it's really tricky to get people to love what you love, and sometimes you just can't. And I remember when it's funny, because you do that thing where you kind of go, well, if it's something I really love and it's just for me, then that's okay. Like when Olivia Newton-John passed away, I did a post going, Grease was really important to me as a kid. And if no one else understands that, that's fine. Because when she does that moment in this film, or when that happens in the movie, or whatever is happening with Grease, that could just be for me, and that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
But me and my dog Buddy just watching Grease, and that's okay. No one else has to like Grease, but it's that. So that's that as well. So I think if things are personal for people, and it's okay. But it is nice when you go, oh, come and see this movie, and then they go, fuck, that was amazing. I'd never thought I'd see that. I'd never see that. So well, yeah, just trust people. So that's the beauty of Cinemaniacs. I can go, you know, trust my programming. Come and see this. I reckon you'll dig it. And so you get people who would never go and see, you know, some melodrama from the 50s, and they'll go and see, go, wow, that was really full on. I go, well, yeah, you know. So that's the other thing as well. I think there's film culture's really weird. I think it's either or. It's either like you and I and our kind of mass diverse community, or it's people who don't actually care and they just let things get fed to them like a Netflix series. And I don't think that's a culture. I think that's
it's really not.
People. No, it's people being lazy.
It's an algorithm.
Yeah, it's like anyone dealing with mainstream shit. Like it's like same as music. Like, are you seriously going to listen to the top 40? Like, you're not going to think of it. Yeah,
it's a waste.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between algorithm programming and a human film element behind it, because film programming in itself is an art form. There's so much that goes into it to be able to curate for the masses in a way that is acceptable for everybody, entertaining for everybody, and can be contextually important for a completely different culture at that time. So you can really...
Can you explain to me, because can you explain to me the algorithm thing for Netflix? Like, how does that... So is that the thing where it sort of says, oh, you just watched... I don't fucking know. And you might like this. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so they have computer programs that are built to spiderweb different films out. So if one film is something that you obviously watch, maybe you've watched it a few times, and they can say, oh, you must really like, and they make broad assumptions. So you watched A Nightmare on Elm Street. You must obviously like all 80s slashers. So we're going to recommend all of them to you. And okay, maybe that works for some people, but for others, maybe that was, researching for a video essay. Now you don't want anything like that. So now your entire algorithm is shot because that's nothing like what you're actually going to want.
Right. So if someone's watching diverse stuff on Netflix, that would fuck up with their computer.
It absolutely can. Yeah. The Netflix side of things, it can not know what to recommend you. It can just show you everything across the board. There's sometimes people don't even know that new releases are out because they don't watch things that are related to that, even though it might exactly interest them. So they get screwed out of art that could be made for their interest entirely.
Wow. Because I picked up, I watch a lot of docos that I know will never see disc. So there'll be documentaries on these things. And I go, all right, just fucking, I'll sign up for the free thing and just watch that. So there's things like that. And then it's like, oh my God, that doc was stunning. Why isn't it getting a release? That drives me mad.
Yeah, I do the same thing. A lot of what I stream are documentaries, and you can't find them anywhere else. And because of that, they recommend all the documentaries. But most of my friends, they've never heard of them because they don't ever see those on their algorithms.
Got it. Yeah. And even I wanted to check out the Norman Lear reinvention of One Day at a Time. And the only way to see it was on Netflix. So I did that thing that people call binge. So I actually did. I was like, oh, this is fine. This is fine. So you take, the Latinx version of, the stunning. Yeah. I loved it. I love Rita Moreno. Beautiful. So I watched that going, this is excellent. But why just put it on fucking DVD? Because they glitches and things, it's horrible. Like, streaming is awful. Like, I'm sorry. It's really hard. And so, even thank God, Shudder, bless them, they released the Horror Noir Blu-ray, which I have right there.
Yep.
That and the Friedkin one, Leap of Faith.
Yep.
So they released the dingos. And, I'm friends with Brian Fuller, and I go, you need to make sure that frickin' the queer one has a disc release, because people who are real, people who actually love that shit want to own it.
I agree. I'm dying to get that one on disc because I watched the first episode on Shudder, and I'm waiting for the disc so I can support that. Yeah, it was a great series.
Did you watch? You only saw the first episode.
Yes, and it was enough to make me go, "Damn it, I absolutely will pay money to hold this in my hand."
Yeah, yeah. Keep following it up though, because my favorite episode is actually the last one of that series, of that season, which is all about the sort of killer lesbian, killer bisexual woman trope. And it goes really good places. Like even like the whole
Nice.
wave of the two girl, the psychotic coupling of girls in the 90s, that whole wave of things like Heavenly Creatures and stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Shudder is kind of like quietly killing it with the documentaries they've been doing the last few years. They are really diving deep into some of these themes that not a lot of people in the horror community seem to want to, and it seems to be this interesting underbelly of fans because for a while, people kind of bragged about how welcoming and accepting horror was, but in all reality, it wasn't that welcome or accepting. They didn't give opportunities to the people that they really deserved to get to some of those opportunities. It ended up being kind of very similar, ableist and classist to a lot of people, and it seems like nowadays we are finally shining a light on some of the creators that really deserved a little bit more of a chance back there.
Especially when like something like horror is so classically, traditionally for marginalized people, was
Right.
working class people, and they were like I love those old photos of seeing the lineups at Frankenstein and where it's women, like the queues are all women,
Yes.
like it was women at home going to the movie, saving their pennies to go to a film during the Depression. But it's so that kind of things are interesting. But also you mentioned Shudder giving opportunities to filmmakers to do stuff with them, but they also acquire stuff that's already made independently. Yep. That's excellent, like Kayla's folk horror doco, which could have gone an extra 10 hours. Like I think it's like 5 hours. Bless her, that's excellent. And that, wow, like my God, and like the way she structured it, like how it was geographical. Every talking head was like just brilliant. Like it was just a beautiful, meaty documentary that you could pause and go, all right, take your dog for a walk, come back and keep watching. Just stunning. It reminded me of Tommy Hudson's Elm Street one, the Never Sleep Again. Goes for 4 hours. Stunning. So yeah. Amazing stuff. So yeah, I love that there's a platform like Shudder. So I'm not anti-streamers. I'm just like, just have content that's awesome, which the ones that do have the docos, beautiful, but also please put them on disc. So when like Disclosure came on, I think that was a Netflix thing. So my friend Jenny Olsen was a producer on that. That was stunning. So the trans representation in film history, film and TV, just beautiful. Great talking heads, Laverne Cox, etc. That needs to be on disc. After it's played out on Netflix, where's it going to go? Just disappears? That needs to exist. It's really important. Like that's life-saving. Same as like when Peacock, I think it was Peacock, did The Visible, which was like LGBT representation in TV history, which was freaking phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, it's 6 parts, I think, and it goes right back from like late 40s to now, and it's so deep and really moving, and like is really clever in the way it's structured. Because I remember first seeing it going, I'm going to be in tears and love all these episodes until it gets to later times. I'm not going to care. But they were clever because what they did was, say, for instance, when they got to a later episode, they would talk about, say, bisexual representation in television, and they'd bring in Taxi then. So it's like, oh, fuck. So, like, they bring all this older stuff. So they're very clever. They kept, nerds like me who like classic TV all the way through. And it's one of the best series about, TV history or film history ever. That needs a disc release. So there's all that stuff, like I'm looking forward to all these, the representation of in horror stuff that's I know is coming out. But yeah, there's a lot of good doco stuff. I love it because it's all archive and clips and that stuff. I just eat it up. Oh, I loved. Sorry, I'm rabbiting on. But the recent thing on Netflix, the one about black representation, which was pretty much like a video essay, but he had fabulous Antonio Fargas and Lawrence Fishburne. There's a couple and Whoopi, but it was amazing. That was just recent. That's on Netflix. I learned about that because friends of mine posted on Facebook. Go, what the hell is this? This looks amazing. Where are you? And it was Netflix. I had to go and do a Netflix. But that's another thing. that needs a disc release, because I've got like shelves of docos, and obviously docos about movies, you know.
There are a lot that are just living and dying on streaming, and they're going to be forgotten fairly quickly, which is sad for the people that can, consume that, but also it's sad for the creators. The amount of time and work that goes into these to just have them be lost into the ether, they're gone, basically. Sure, they're on.
I'm sure you're friends with him as well, but John Campopiano did the It documentary, the Pennywise.
Yep.
And that just got its stunning. Like, everyone needs to own that. You know, like that can't just live in a streaming service and then disappear. Like, that's got on camera, like, alone with Tim Curry. You know, like, sorry, like, this is a man. Anyway, blah blah blah. But it's just that whole thing of like the longevity, the eternity of having a disc. You know, I've still held on to most of my DVDs, because a lot of them actually have content on it that you don't get again.
Yeah.
And also I buy a lot of TV stuff, and I know it's going to be never or in years to come when Hill Street Blues gets a Blu-ray release. You know, so I'm happy with the DVDs because they look fine. You know, I'm not too precious about whatever, but you know, you're not going to get moored on Blu-ray looking better than how it was shot. Like, it's fine to have it on that beautiful Shout Factory release, stunning, you know. So a lot of stuff I'll hold on to, and also it's funny. I don't know. I don't know how you are. I'll have to ask you. But when a Blu-ray of something comes out and you've already got it on DVD, do you need? And I'm like, oh fuck, and you kind of are wrestling with that. And most of the times I'm like, yes, I'll buy the Blu-ray, but I don't know. What's your thoughts? Because a lot of the time, stuff.
There are some of these things I've got 3 and 4 copies, because not only are there certain features that are on other ones, but first of all, I've watched that disc 15 times. I don't want to just give that away just yet. It's a part of me.
I know. It's weird, isn't it?
It's basically an extension of my personality at that point.
I know. Yeah, because you remember it's weird, but you remember when you bought it. You remember when, you know, they have that kind of, especially if you do, like, because I do the seasonal viewing. So, like, Easter, I'll do my, you know, Godspell and fucking, The Being, you know, all my, and Critters 2, and, you know, and they just have them running. So you remember, that was last Easter that happened. Like, you know, it's weird. But also, you're right. It's like, I don't want to give that away, actually. Like, I've got, like, probably 7 copies of, like, Grizzly. Like, I don't need that many fucking copies. Like, and you kind of go, maybe I'll give it away to, you know, because we do prizes at Cinemaniacs. Like, maybe I'll donate it. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Even now, like, we're doing an Unmarried Woman on Friday. Yeah. And I bought the box set of Mary Tyler Moore from the US. But in Australia, we had them out ages ago from Madman. They put it out. And I've got those. I think I bought 3 seasons from Madman, but now I can retire them because I've got the full box set from the States with all the features. And the 3 of those Mary Tyler Moore sets are going to go into the prize thing. And still, I'm like, oh, which is like, I don't fucking need them. I've got them, right? You know, and also what my brain's going is, forget the fucking holding on to them because you've already got them, but also how cool it would be if someone has never seen Mary Tyler Moore wins it and watches and falls in love with that show and sees the importance of that show. You know, so yeah, especially if they're like maybe a young woman who's never watched 70s feminist television, seeing something so revolutionary, you know. But anyway, so that's you hope that happens.
Well, and that touches on something that I really wish people saw as more important in 2022, and that's just this idea of accessibility. We have the resources to do so much with this art, and a lot of them, they're just held captive by greed. They're held, or people that they don't even know they have the rights to some of these things. So some of these movies are never going to be able to get released because we can't find who owns the rights, or film elements. And that all calls back to the important thing at the beginning, which is archiving a lot of this, which is why physical media is so damn important.
Yeah, definitely. I was so happy to see like the release of Alligator. Like, yes. I think Justin did a fucking awesome job with that release. It's beautiful. But yeah, thank God that got a release, and it has the 2 cuts, and just Stunning. Because that was one that when you mentioned that comes to mind, that was wrapped up in a lot of rights stuff.
Yeah.
And also like, you know, licensing rights and music rights stuff, like looking for Mr. Goodbar. Like, when is that going to see the light of day? That's something that people are clamoring, you know, another Paramount title. But also when you mention the rights thing, it's really tricky, and it's really interesting learning about that stuff because I'm doing producing work for Altered Innocence. And like, you know, Frank Jaffe is a legend. He does so much amazing work with that label. And he'll go, oh, I'm trying to chase this title. And I'll go and try and hunt things down. And then I'll pitch to him, what about this? He goes, well, let's find out. So that whole thing is another whole world. And it's amazing to do. And I'm really happy to work for that company. It's such a good company. So important again. But Frank is just a legend. Amazing work. And also people that he's associated with, like Jenny Olsen and stuff, who just do all this incredible work with archive, with researching who owns what. You know, knowing people like Maya Smuckler, who is at the UCLA archives. You know, all these people, just a wealth of knowledge. Like, seriously, it's even John Campopiano, of course, like amazing archivist. That's what he does, as well as being a filmmaker. But just that whole stuff is just incredible. Like, just to have those people, you know, an email away just to see how they can help. Oh, invaluable. It's beautiful. But
and that's why doing it now is so important, because a lot of these people are not going to be alive much longer. So some of those people that held some of those rights and can confirm who owned something or can confirm where film elements are, we're losing some of that knowledge every single day. That's why we got to support this now when we can.
Yeah, and Ryan, I don't know, the journey of finding who owns the rights to things is insane. So when this is pretty funny. I'll tell you a story. So years ago, it wasn't that long ago actually, maybe 8 years ago, I entertained the idea of adapting Willard, the one with the, you know, Bruce Davison with the rat, into a musical, a stage musical. And I really, you know, the idea was it was going to be puppetry. Anyway, I had this whole synopsis written down. I had treatments written down. I had, I think, 2 composers in idea, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, how do I do this? How do I get the rights? So it went from me asking, I don't even know where I started, but it went from like Warner Brothers to Bing Crosby's company to going back to the source novel. So all this stuff, it ended up, to get the adaptation rights to stage, going to the University of Belfast, which is where the original novel of the Ratman's Notebooks was held. And they go, yes, you can do it for $25,000. I go, all right. And I'm like, I don't have that money. Good, sorry. So $25,000. So that was really interesting. Then it was like, oh, wow. So that was the journey. And it took about, I reckon, I've got the email chain still, 8 months to find that, to go through that.
Jeez.
And then years later, got to know Bruce Davison, became friends with Sondra Locke, the late, great Sondra Locke. And I was doing all this Willard stuff. And then the Blu-ray came out from Screen Factory. And look, beautiful Nathaniel. I love Nathaniel Thompson. He's a good friend and he does beautiful work and we give each other jobs. But yeah, he got to do Willard and I was annoyed. Because I've done all this fucking stuff with Willard. But that's okay. And Ben. But yeah, he did a beautiful job. And those bloody prints, my God, especially Willard, it just looks beautiful. I don't know where I'm going with that. But yeah, the whole thing about rights. So a lot of stuff just goes mental. Like, it's just insane, like where you end up with rights. I think a lot of the TV movie stuff, that's where I really hope a lot of companies start to dive into those, because like Fun City, freaking awesome. Like, bless them, because they're doing some TV stuff. And I did an essay for something coming up, which I won't mention because they'll kill me, but it's going to be a really good set.
Yeah, I've had Jonathan on the channel, and the way that he is curating Fun City is magical. The stuff that they're putting out, every single one is just this stone cold classic that is so underseen, and people are falling in love again. And it makes me just giddy to see people, all of a sudden, all kinds of reviews coming in on Letterboxd, and you can see the world having their taste curated again, and it's just this magical moment. I love it.
Jonathan's amazing. Another one. They're all excellent. Like, everyone's doing such beautiful work. Like, seriously.
And that's every time one of these gets announced, like you just said with the rights, because it's such a journey, it's like a victory. It's something that really should be celebrated. And it's, I don't know, it's such a labor of love that it's really hard to look at it as anything is like, wow, we are just so fortunate to have every single one of these releases.
I know. I think the TV movie stuff, though, that's kind of like, that's where I reckon I really want that to keep going strong. Like all those ABC movies of the week. Could you imagine like a really nice print of Dawn and Alexander and all those? Just to have them all just looking stunning. Because Fun City, when they did, the graffiti one with Trini. Anyway,
yes,
the Primetime Panic set.
Yeah.
And the one with the carnies that was written by Barbara Turner. Like, sorry, but they look just perfect. Like, how they look stunning. Like that.
Yeah.
Like, really? Wow. Because I remember even on television they looked, not great. But that's just what he's done. Like, it's amazing. So,
there's so many filmmakers that did TV films that don't have their stuff out there either that people would go crazy for. I mean, the amount of Toby Hooper did like 5 other TV films that still aren't out there. There's so many big filmmakers that did TV stuff that could just see this massive resurgence, and they'd sell well.
I know. Same as like Jonathan Demme with Sarah T.
Yes,
that got a nice Blu-ray. That looked stunning. My God, was that Shout Factory?
I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, just really cool stuff. Like so much, and Amanda's work with TV movie stuff is amazing. Like her book, Are You in the House Alone? And that, that's like a Bible for it. Like, but yeah, just all that stuff, all the after school specials, like they need to be released.
Yeah.
Like it would be great with Altered Innocence if they did like, I've been pitching it to Frank and Frank's like, we'll see. But the idea of like doing box sets about like queer themed TV movies and TVs, but like What If I'm Gay, or what's the one with Scott Baio, The Truth About Alex, all those, they're great, Welcome Home Bobby, they're just really cool stuff. But there's so much, and also docs, it was so cool to see Celluloid Closet getting a 4K, like that's beautiful, that's unreal. And also I just got my comp of the Columbia, Columbia, because I worked on. I happen
to have it right here.
Beautiful! That's great. Yeah, working on the Annie, that was amazing, and having to be shut up about that for like a year. That was very hard. So like, I spoke to Carol Burnett and Tim Curry, but it's like, shut the fuck up, like you said. But yeah, no, that was great to work on, and that just looks. Like that's incredible, and they've done the archive stuff, and just beautiful. And they got in the 30s Annie film. That was cool. That was really nice.
Yeah, they went kind of all out on this third version of this Columbia Classics. I'm astonished what all they were able to get into this box set. I'm just now starting to dive in, and it's stupendous. I'm curious. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the people I work for with them are beautiful. They're just beautiful as well, just awesome, and they get it. They understand that these classic movies is what people want, because Sony, right. They put out the fucking what's his name, Thor. They do all the superhero. They do all that superhero stuff, right? But no, I don't know if anyone wants to buy Thor 4 on Blu-ray. Do they? I'm sure there might be some people. Yeah. Okay. But for the most part,
I agree.
You want to see what's up, anyway, sorry.
As we pull it in for a landing, I would love to hear what films you would die to be, part of the contributions for, whether it's visual essays, commentaries, other than the Willard remake on 4K.
The Pack. Anything with his people.
I saw you post about your dog saving somebody's life. What was that about?
Yeah. Do you want to know the story?
Yeah, please, by all means.
Yeah. So, Buddy he loves big walks, right? So he's a terrier cross. So he's obsessed with like 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours a day walking and running. Yeah. Like he's a very active dog. And there was one day where it just rained, and I go, buddy, we can't go out, like it's raining. So he's pacing up and down the house. I'm like, all right, look, if it breaks, we'll go. So it broke in the wet, and he was not taking no for an answer. So I was like, okay, dude, we're going. And he kept coming up, going, I go, all right, put him on the leash, harness on. We go out. It did break in the weather. That's fine. Did rain here and there. We went for a big walk around the suburbs, and we came around back to my street, our street here, and maybe about 4 blocks up from us is this woman on her own named Olympia, who's this elderly Greek lady. And Buddy, like, loves her, like, knows her. But this day he went nuts, like panicking. I go, what the hell? And he was bolting across the road to get to her. I go, all right, calm down. And he was barking, and this is like weird. And he's bolting to her house and jumping up on her fence, frantic. His tail's going crazy, and he's barking. And it's not a happy bark, like he's stressed. And I go, okay, what's going on? She must have heard us. She clearly did. And she opened the door. It gets a bit graphic, people, but she opened the door and she was bleeding quite severely from her face. And I go, okay. And I love cinema gore, like I'm a gore hound, but real life, I can't. I just get a bit weak. I was like, oh, fuck, what's going on? And Buddy's like bolts towards her, circles her, makes sure she's all right. Like he's, panicking for her, like really, but then also accompanying her. And she was bleeding. And I stayed with her. And this was one time I didn't have my freaking phone with me. And then luckily this woman was coming down the road. And I go, you need to call an ambulance. So we called the ambulance. Buddy knew that she was not well. And it ended up that she had like burst blood vessels in her nose. And she's also on these medicines that thinned out her blood. So she could have,
Wow.
So got to the ambulance. They had to fuse the thingo, and then she was saved. So the next couple of days later, her daughters came. It was all fine. But then she told her GP that, me and Buddy were there. And the GP was like, the dog saved. The dog knew. The dog knew he was stressed from that far and could sense it. And I go, that's incredible. And Buddy stayed with her until she was ready to go to the ambulance. So there you go. That's amazing. I know, it's very good.
What a way to end this. Yeah, that's incredible.
So to answer your question, any movie with dogs, but especially things like Pack. So I know that's with Warner's. I know Warner Archives did that beautiful DVD, which looks stunning and much better than the fucking video I've got. But a Blu-ray of that, but I don't think Warner Archives really do much with features. But heaps of things, a lot of TV stuff. I just love whatever. Like I'm into everything. But I would love seeing things like what needs Blu-ray releases? Oh, things like Looking for Mr. Goodbar. God, there's so much. What are films that you want out?
There's all kinds of them. I really love a lot of the like late night movies that came out in the 90s that were really like neo-noir-ish, really high on the thrillers.
The erotic thrillers.
Like the imprint box sets that they're doing after the neo-noir cinema box sets, they're incredible. That sort of thing. There's so many that people just forget exist. They could do 7 more of those box sets and still be like top tier quality.
Yeah, that's right. I'd love weird, like those kind of like half-hour specials that you'd see like really early in the morning or really late at night, like the 2-minute werewolf. Yeah, and like all those kind of things that just popped up that were like, what the fuck is it's just a filler?
Yeah, I would love Agfa could do some great stuff with that.
Yeah, another company, just stunning. Like that's the thing; these companies need to keep going. So thank God for people, buying the stuff because my God, like Agfa, the Doris Wishman sets and like just beautiful and like something weird. Everyone who works in this field, just stellar. Like it's really good. I'm really, really blessed to be part of it. To be honest, a small part of it. Like it's all good.
Well, we are all blessed to have you be a part of it, Lee. So thank you for your time and energy, not only talking about it today, but to giving to all those releases and giving back to Melbourne and doing everything that you're doing. So keep it up. And obviously, what we've talked about today, keep supporting these companies, keep sharing the love. Those communities are what keeps a lot of these releases going. And in all reality, it's kind of like evangelizing for a religion because we got to go out and save some of these films, and without some of us sharing the love, they're just gone into obscurity, and we don't want that.
That's right. And also, just to tail in that, I think it's really important to note that a lot of these films are actually life affirming and really kind of important because, you know, when a company like Altered Innocence releases, you know, a trans film that no one has seen, and it's from the early 80s, that's actually really fucking important. That kind of makes you go, wow, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's something as well. That's a whole other conversation. Just the idea of, you know, women and people of color and, you know, queer people or whatever, just in cinema history forever, and having that championed on these sets is really important. Like, you know, what Kino did with the women directors of the silent era. Like, that is just stunning. Like, you know what I mean? It's very important. It's not just about collecting, and it's not just about, you know, filling the gaps in your shelves. It's actually about, wow, you know, there's all these people have been here forever doing amazing work. It's not anything new.
I agree. Yeah, very important, and it seems to be a running theme. I've had a lot of conversations lately where we've touched on this sort of accessibility to these other shared experiences, because it could be validating on a way that we don't get, and truly representation matters. No matter how you look at it, every segment of society would be less well known if we didn't at least share some form of their experiences.
Yeah, and varied experience.
Yes, absolutely. We got to have that diversity because we live in a diverse world.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
for your
you,
time,
Ryan. I'm sorry if I chewed your ear off.